The problem is they're not succeeding at the Activision model of we're selling our AAA that we're hell or high water. We've got one coming out every year, right? Like Call of Duty. And they're not succeeding on their AA market, which is effectively let's create somewhat smaller games, but are that have a higher polish or are appealing to a specific demographic or niche. They're failing on both those ends, right? So
yeah, and it's just they're just too big, right? With all these failures mounting up, the size and all the different development studios they have, they can't sustain themselves. And they found a winning formula, what was it, 10 years ago with that open world formula, and they put it in every single franchise they could, where if I could tell you a Ubisoft game when I go to the map, right? And it started with Far Cry, and then it went into Assassin's Creed and everything like that. And at a certain point, you're creating too much ubiquity, and you're not differentiating what you're releasing enough. And
there's a lot of fear mongering in that space, especially when it comes to games. But I do think that we might see the hybrid team that is like more teams are actually smaller, making more, AA size games, but they're utilizing these things. So you end up seeing higher quality or faster turnaround. So the time for game development goes back down, because that's actually one of the biggest problems. Like when you look at the development of Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, etc., it's like, what was that, 1 year, 1.5 years of development cycle? Now you're looking at a 5, 6, 7 year. And who of us, like, that's the challenge.
With
I always
10x
give
the team size,
right?
Yeah.
Not in 10x the team size, but also who of us here have ever had the same job for 7 years? Like I haven't.
I've never had a job for 7 years.
Right. There's always some kind of turnover, and that also attributes to, well, the original person thought this, and we're going to go ahead and make a different directional change, and that means all these extra knock-on problems and decisions. I know, Chris, you have a heart out, but do we want to kick off 20 questions and you can dip if you got to, and because I at least got 2 others.
I'll have to dip. I will say on that cost thing, the filing for court revealed how much Call of Duty games cost, like this last week or two, and they're like $700 million. They're outrageously expensive, anywhere between like $450 and $700 million.
I wish I could audit that so bad.
Outrageously expensive. I think people were like, where does it go? So when you look at AI, the stuff coming out of, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff coming out of Adobe now, but like if you draw a 2D image of like, let's say like a little guy fighting with his sword for your little side scroller game, and then you realize you want to have him turn, AI can now say, cool, I can make that an asset that I can picture from each of these angles. That's where I think AI is going to help game development.